Many people communicate passively. That's the first type we'll talk about. This means they essentially avoid expressing themselves. They have something that's on their mind, but they don't say it. And the trouble with this is that other people cannot read our minds. And that means there's a very low likelihood that we're going to get our needs met if we don't talk clearly about what they are in the first place. A passive communicator is likely to quietly accept other people's positions. They'll say to themselves, well, I'll just let the other person have their way. But over time, it becomes a pattern. Driving forces behind passive communication could be fear, a desire to avoid conflict, or just a lack of confidence to speak up. Next, aggressive communication is dominating. People who communicate aggressively do a lot of blaming, attacking, and finger pointing. They'll say things like, it's all your fault, or you're an awful person. They're really pushy with their views, and they want to be in control of the situation. I used to work with a really aggressive communicator. They used lots of you language, and they escalated conversations. You. This person would cut people off in mid-sentence, used a frustrated or angry tone. They waved their arms all over the place as they talked. They had a collection of tactics they used to dominate other people. That brings us to assertive communication, which is direct and respectful. A driving force behind this is the value of mutual respect. That's a theme. The assertive communicator is going to say what's on their mind really clearly, but they also respect the opinions of others. Assertive communication means you state your preference, but you're not attempting to silence or control others. Instead of you language, like aggressive communicators, assertive communicators use what we call I language. So instead of saying you are causing the delay, they say I'm concerned about the delay. In other words, they own their perspective. We'll talk more about how to communicate assertively in a couple of moments. The last type is passive aggressive, which means the communicator doesn't speak up directly about their feelings. They let their anger and aggressiveness simmer just below the boiling point, and then they let it out in strange ways or maybe act like the victim who has no agency as they express themselves. I used to work with a passive-aggressive communicator. This person didn't speak up much, but when they did, there was usually something a little sideways about the way they talked. They used sarcastic comments. They grumbled to themselves in meetings. But if you asked them directly, did you want to add your point of view? They'd say,
no, that's fine, I'm good.
But you could tell from their tone they weren't fine. Passive-aggressive communicators don't come right out with their aggressiveness. They let it leak out. I've also noticed they sometimes gossip or talk behind your back or try to communicate through somebody else instead of speaking to you directly. The question is, why then is assertive communication the best approach for you? Well, it's the best approach because in contrast, if you are aggressive or passive-aggressive, people will be distracted by how you express yourself and they won't be able to hear what's really beneath it. You're giving them two jobs, essentially. You're asking them to hear you, but you're making it difficult for them to do that because you're also giving them an unhelpful communication style to react to. Assertive communication communicates clearly and respectfully, but without the emotional noise. And that means your message is more likely to hit its mark. Assertive communicators are much more likely in the end to be heard. So question for you, do any of these four approaches sound like you?